Cool, awesome, Josh. Nice to have you, man. I've been going through your Facebook profile and I was seeing some really sick stuff, man. Like you and your fitness regime and like how, first of all, man, you have a great physique. Like I must give you that, right? And especially on a plant-based diet, where people think that it's just impossible to have protein, whatnot, all of that. I'm very happy to go ahead and sit down with you today to debunk all of this. But before we do that, man, Josh, how about you go ahead and real quick give us a quick introduction, however you like.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, man. It's a pleasure and honor to be here and just talking with you, another like-minded individual. And um, so, as you know, my name's Josh. I'm 37 years old. I currently live in Bali with my five children and my wife. And however, I am from Texas, and yeah, so I work as a natural builder. That's my main career. I've worked as a builder for a decade. And I currently work on a special type of project. It's a special type of geometry. It's called
Mm,
biologic architecture. That's maybe a conversation for another time, but that's kind of like my foundation of what I do. And because I've been so busy raising five children, working as a builder, pursuing this sort of fringe career and oftentimes working 40 to 50 hours a week, I had
mm,
to, out of necessity, um, figure out a way where I could maintain a high level of health, high energy levels, and still be able to, achieve the physique. And to really be honest, the physique is more of a byproduct of the lifestyle in general. And it's more of like a perk
mm,
because I really don't put a whole lot of focus and emphasis on doing lots of exercise in order to develop it. Really, the exercise has that I do, which we'll talk a little bit more about. I call it low volume, high intensity calisthenics. Has so many other benefits than just building muscle. It stimulates the
mm,
endocrine system, it stimulates the lymphatic system, it gets the metabolism going, it creates positive endorphins that give you a positive feedback for doing more of this health affirming behavior. And as another cool byproduct, is you also build muscle strength and functional athleticism. So so I've lived here in Bali for 2 years. I've been plant based for 15 years. Six of that has been mostly raw. Let's say 3 to 4 of that
mm.
was fully raw. And currently, for the last 3 to 4 years, I've been about 80% raw, always high fruit. I basically eat fruit through the day for breakfast and lunch. And then we do the type of cooked foods that we do would be like sweet potato, sometimes some quinoa, sometimes for a special occasion, some beans or something like that, and like wakame miso soup, some steamed cooked vegetables, etc., etc. So that's basically what we do for the cooked side of things. And the reason why we actually incorporate some cooked foods into the diet is a lot has to do with just finding and striking a balance with raising children, making sure we can get
Mm.
enough. It's a little bit challenging to get enough raw vegetables into a 4 year old. Let's just say that. So having a little bit of those cooked vegetables, breaking down the starch, breaking down the fiber, I mean, making it to where you can get a larger volume of these minerals, vitamins, etc., in the form of vegetables into the children, making it a little bit more rich and palatable, has been a nice balance for us. And I feel super energetic and amazing, just as
Yeah.
much so as when I was fully raw, with this ratio of low starchy foods, I guess you could say, and just like some mostly cooked vegetables.
Got it. Got it. And for some people who might just not know what those starchy foods would be, so just a few, could you just list a few starchy foods that are very common in the society?
Yeah, so starchy foods would be like sweet potatoes, whole grains, including rice, millet, quinoa, and then also the beans, tofus. These things are going to also be all starchy type of foods,
Cool.
which
Yeah.
tend
Yeah.
to be
Awesome, man.
which are tend to be like they're I'm not so much against those things. However, they do require more energy to metabolize. They can create more of a mucus response. They're not nearly as ideal of an energy source as fruit, which is just absolutely perfect. The fructose is so perfect for our metabolism and for our energy and everything. However, they still are. I look at things in good, better, best. They're still in the good category.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And what would be in the bad category?
I would say that processed foods, like the most highly processed foods, are going to be some of the worst, and then animal foods are going to be after that,
Mm,
um, because some people can still do okay on like less processed type of animal foods on a longer time frame than they can with highly processed, super high seed oil, highly chemicalized. Uh, Things like that. Those things tend to really gunk us up and mess us up the fastest. And then after that,
mm,
it really comes down. There's so much of importance around making sure that we have the fat content in our diet right. Having the right fat content actually allows us to metabolize carbohydrates super efficiently, most efficiently, which as a human species, that's really our ideal food source and energy
mm,
source. And so that's why, amongst many other things, animal foods comes in as a is really hard on the body long term because it is very high in saturated fat, and so it creates something called insulin resistance. We can't get the carbohydrates into the cells very well. We end up with high blood sugar, acidic blood, etc. That's a major issue with the animal foods. Not to mention that they also just contain a lot of compounds that contribute to the aging process, and these
mm,
they're called advanced glycation end products, and it's where basically when you cook things, especially animal foods and high fat foods, the proteins bind with the glucose and it creates an advanced glycation end product. It's intentionally acronymed age, because this
mm.
byproduct is like the most associated metabolic byproduct with the aging process. So that's another major negative to the animal foods. And then, of course, just the energetic sort of karmic spiritual aspect to commodifying and harming a creature when more and more and more research is showing that not only is there no nutritive necessity for the such, but there's actually detriment, physical detriment and health detriment to doing so. So there's an ethical issue along with that as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
to answer your question very briefly, processed foods and animal foods are going to be, I think, the worst things to put in the body.
Got it. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for clarifying that, man. And absolutely about the meat products, animal products. One is that most of the people that be listening to this, to today, to you and me, are not in a survival situation for the most part. Majority of them, right? So that only in survival situation is when it was probably justified to have animal products, but no more are we in a survival situation, and no more is there really a need to survive. Like no more a need to have these, because a lot of us have probably justified before that, oh, we need animal products to live, or for protein, whatnot. But like you said, more and more research is coming in this direction where they're proving that it's not the case. You probably won't need it. And also something that I've noticed from a consciousness standpoint, man, is that before, when I used to have animal products, definitely during the day I could feel my energy levels and my conscious levels just go down. Like I was just going on, lower planes of consciousness for sure after consuming this. No more was I light and moving and this and that. You're also big, Josh. I was curious to ask. You're also big on anti-aging, right? Um,
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in anti-aging and done a good bit of research.
yeah. Do you want to share anything around that?
Sure. Well, I can tell you, there's there's a when it comes to diet. Or okay, let's see where to start, because there's a few different angles to come at this from. Um, we can look
Mm,
at the blue zones. So basically what we have as far as research around aging, the aging process, is we have studies that where we have control groups and we're doing experimental studies. That's the word I'm looking for, where we're trying different things and seeing what happens when you add this or what happens when you take away this. And those are enlightening. They can be a little bit tricky because it's hard to control all the variables. However, when you get enough correlations over a long enough period of time, then you start to get a more and more crisp kind of picture. Those, so we have experimental studies, and then we have demographic studies. And so those demographic
Mm,
studies are where we look at populations, large populations over periods of time, to see their habits and to be able to correlate with things such as lifespan, and not only as lifespan but actually quality of lifespan. So,
mm.
like in the last 100 years, we've drastically increased the lifespan, but most people over the age of 60 are on multiple medications, are dealing with multiple diseases all the way up until the time that they finally make the transition. So, um, and then the other thing, of course, is anthropological studies, right? So we can look at the history of what
Mm,
people eat. So, the demographic studies that I like to look at is like the blue zone type of stuff, where it's like
mm,
the blue zones are the locations all over the planet where the most centurions live, people who live over 100. And there's like seven main ones. There's some Mediterranean. There's a Mediterranean one. There's one off California. There's one in Costa Rica, and so on.
Okinawa.
Okinawa, exactly. And
Yeah.
so we have some commonalities between all of those. As far as diet goes, it is all of those are 95+% plant based. And so they're eating beans, sweet potatoes, um, they're doing rice, whole grains, usually lots of fruit. Most of these places are actually in a sub or tropical or subtropical area, so they have access to fruits, access to sunlight, so they're getting probably sufficient vitamin D and that sort of thing. They also, so much has to do with the relationships in their family. So if they have a sense of purpose, they have a sense of belonging, then there's like a will to live, and that carries on into quality and functionality through life. And so the demographic studies that we see show that the the main correlation with uh, long or living past 100, let's say, is 95+% plant based. So that's an important one. So then when we start to look at the experimental studies, we can start to get, uh, uh, we see the studies, validate those sorts
Mm,
of findings. And a lot of this has to do with when you look at plant foods, these plant foods in comparison to animal foods are much, much, much lower. I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of times lower in these things called advanced glycation in products. These are called ages. And like I said, these happen oftentimes when you cook foods. The proteins bind with the glucose. This is chemical reaction that occurs, and you get these things that tend to age us. And we won't go too deeply into all the biology of this. Animal foods are much, especially the more hot, the more dry you cook them, the more advanced glycation end products build up. And even the most hot, worst cooked plant food is hundreds of times less than the least cooked animal food, just to put it in perspective.
mm,
So we can see already you we're eating less of the bad stuff. And then if you look at, there's another organic compound that is most correlated with longevity. It's something called spermidine. And animal foods are oftentimes low in spermidine. Plant foods are very high in spermidine. So that's the positive, another positive aspect. And then there's obviously the aspect, especially with raw foods, especially with berries and colorful things, we get very high antioxidant content. These antioxidants go and neutralize free radicals that happen naturally from metabolic processes, and also from um, overcooking food and things like that. We take in these free radicals that tend to oxidize our cells and make us age. Antioxidants come in, go ahead and connect with these free radicals, and we pass them harmlessly. So that's just three aspects of a vast body of data around longevity and aging, and specifically pointing towards a whole food plant based diet, especially high raw, especially high in fruits and berries, being strongly correlated with longevity.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, and this the facts and the research and everything is just increasing by the day, as to how you could increase your quality of life by, yeah, coming to a plant-based lifestyle for sure. Man, let's talk a bit more personal about you. So, before Bali, I'm guessing. Wait, hold on. When you switched or transitioned to a plant-based diet, were you back in Texas or were you somewhere in the world?
Sorry, can you ask that question again? You broke up for a second.
No worries. So my question was, when you made this transition from what your diet was to a plant-based diet 15 years ago, was this when you were back home in Texas or were you somewhere else in the world?
Yes, I was back in Texas. I was 20, around 20 years old. This is back in 2008. Um,
Hmm.
so I was about 21, I suppose. And I was living in Austin, Texas, pretty progressive city. And I was already coming into having like a pretty big spiritual shift in my life. I was already
Hmm.
going through somewhat of a transformation. And I basically went raw foods overnight. I was getting really into yoga. I was getting really into spirituality and a little bit of psychedelics and things. And I just had this intuitive draw towards not harming animals was the main part. You know, it was like not putting that in my body anymore. And there was already a pretty intact raw food culture in Austin at the time, so I didn't go in totally blind. However, the culture that they raw foods in Austin during that time was like, you know, the term gourmet raw.
No.
It's like it basically refers to like lots of nuts and seeds and
Hmm.
extravagant desserts and too much fat and basically what I would recommend is like not the way to do it for 99% of people.
Of
um,
course.
and I didn't get super into eating lots of fat, but I didn't have enough direction, and I was eating lots of raw vegetables. And what I ran into with that was dealing with some digestive distress and not having the energy that I could have had. And so even though I was having massive amount of I was having a lot of, it was contributing greatly to my transformation. It was contributing greatly to my a lot of cleansing that was happening for me. I was doing some fasting and things. Um, it wasn't until I met my wife whenever I was 20, around 24, that I started to get more savvy to um, nutrition in general, really, like
Hmm.
understanding how fat content affects the carbohydrate metabolism and how we really are primarily carbohydrate based species. And she had already been vegan for 10 years and was really into some people may know this term, but it's something called macrobiotics, which is a type of whole food plant based rooted in Japanese cuisine. And so she had already been macrobiotic for maybe 10 years already, which is macrobiotics is lots of whole grains, lots of rice, lots of beans, lots of cooked vegetables, seaweed, wakame miso soup, uh, a little bit of oil, and sometimes they'll recommend some fish and stuff. But there are macrobiotic people who have been plant based for decades, right? So I made the shift from being fully raw to going into a much more cooked style of vegan. I got during that time we were looking deeply. We were doing a lot of research into the plant-based doctors, Dr. McDougall, Dr. Esselstyn, Bernard, and all the heroes out there. So we were getting really savvy about how fat affects the endothelial lining of the arteries, how it affects cardiovascular health, how it affects insulin resistance, and we did that for maybe like 7 years in that style of eating. We raised a couple kids like that, and basically we had a shift 6 years ago or so where we um, we made the shift to fully raw again. Like I had kind of been like just really feeling like that's what we needed to do, because I had
Hmm.
done some fasting, I had done some cleansing, and I was really missing the lightness that came from the raw foods diet. And so we did a lot of research. We got into Dr. Morse and Dr. Sebi and started learning about detox, learning about the herbs, learning about the high fruit concept of things and how perfect fruits are for our human metabolism. And we made the shift. And immediately, some of the challenges we were having with our digestion lifted because basically we did pretty well on the macrobiotic diet. However, it's a lot of cooked food, and there is some lethargy after meals, and the feeling and a tendency to want to overeat because like that's
Mm.
kind of what happens with these cooked foods. They're addicting. You add extra salt and they become super delicious, and you tend to want to overeat them. And so that was something that had kind of been the main pitfall of what we were experiencing. And so when we made the shift to a high raw, high fruit diet, in fact, we went all raw for 3 years, and we went no salt for 3 years too. We had major shifts in our energy. I mean, I worked 40, 50 hours a week as a hands-on builder, eating fruit all day and never had issues with energy or strength or anything like that. My coworkers and things were always extremely surprised. And like I said, we did that for many years. And then I'm trying to like paraphrase without going too deeply into every detail of the story, but we got an opportunity
Yeah,
to
you
move
did
to
good.
Costa. Okay, we got an opportunity to move to Costa Rica, and um, we were ready to go. We had been in California for a few years. I was working as a natural builder. We were tired of the winters. We've known that we were going to the tropics for a long time. We got this invitation to go to Costa Rica. I had some contracts lined up. We bounced from California back to Texas to take our stuff there and to go say goodbye to our family and stuff. And then the whole COVID lockdown down thing happened. And so
Mm.
we kind of got stuck in Texas for a couple years, and under the pressure of that stress and just dealing with the kids being like, we want different food, we made the shift and we started incorporating some whole grains and some potatoes and some different things back into our diet. There was an initial, you could feel like the energy dip when we started to add in some of the cooked foods. But then what I noticed is that like we kind of went headlong into the cooked foods, and then we're like, okay, now where's the balance? And we kind of came back up, brought the raw back up, kept the high fruit the whole time, and struck a nice balance. It felt like the microbiome adjusted really well, and then struck a nice balance at that 70 to 80% as a standard kind of raw food to cooked food sort of
Mm.
ratio. And I'll say, just to kind of cap off that, we didn't end up going to Costa Rica. We got another opportunity. We tried to, if the border shut down, we got an opportunity to come to Bali, and we made that leap. I had some contracts out here to work as a bamboo builder. So we made the leap out here and have been rocking it for 2 years since then. And just to like, since we're on the topic of carbohydrates versus fat, the research all shows that the optimal ratio of fat in the diet, especially if you're a sensitive individual, such as a diabetic, pre diabetic, is around 15% calories from fat. If you're a more uh, if you have less sensitivity and you're more of a kind of robust health, then you have more flexibility. So I recommend people to aim for the 20% calories from fat. And of course, I recommend people don't eat your fat with your fruit because you're just going to bog down the system to metabolize that stuff. But if you get about 20% of your calories from fat, your insulin sensitivity is going to be amazing. You're going to metabolize carbohydrates super well, and you're going to have your, carbs are going to be your rocket fuel. You're going to do really well.
Yeah, yeah, well said, man. Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. Something in between that you shared about your kids. So your kids sometimes do lean on like they want some different food or something like that. They never go to meat, right? Like there's no animal products involved, but it's like mostly they have also got the taste of the cooked food and they want to have more of it. That's what it is.
Yeah, so kids in general are gonna lean more towards richness in general because they do well with a little bit of a a calorie excess and a nutrient excess rather than them being sort of in a deficit because they are of course growing, they are of course having these needs, and we obviously want to err on a little too much rather than too little when it comes to children. And
Mm,
children, we have the same systems. We have this, it's a pleasure system and it's based upon dopamine. And the way that this whole dopaminergic system works is that whenever we get something that's highly stimulating, highly pleasurable, oftentimes highly saturated in nutrients or dense in nutrients, our body will send a pleasure response, a dopamine response that says, "Yeah, go find more of that." And the way that this
Mm,
works is because in the wild, if we were, it's a survival type thing. If we're in the wild and we're in like a an earlier form of our humanity, and we come upon a grove of nuts, a nut trees. We break open those nuts, concentrated saturated fat. We eat it. We get a major dopamine bump because our bodies are saying concentrated nutrients. You're probably not going to find more of this tomorrow. Like you're probably not going to find
mm,
this for regularly because the nuts only drop so many times a year or whatever, and so it gives us this positive feedback to go back and get more. And so this is all good and fine until you live in a society of abundance where we have concentrated nutrient sources available at our fingertips all the time. And so then we can get in a loop of going and getting the saturated or getting the nutrient dense foods all the time. And so obviously you see the effect of that as you have obesity and that is epidemic proportions, and food addiction is off the charts and things. So all that to say is that this is something. There's actually an amazing book written by some doctors who do water fasting at a place on the west coast of the United States. It's called True North Health Center.
mm,
They wrote a book called The Pleasure Trap, and it talks all about the dopaminergic system and how people mistake natural hunger and natural cravings for pleasurable addiction. And so that's why it's a little bit dangerous when you hear people say, "I just listen to my body." It's like, well, that's, I understand where you're coming from, but there's a difference between listening to true hunger and then realizing, hey, if I eat birthday cake, I'm hungry for birthday cake sometimes. If I eat birthday cake all the time, I'm probably going to get sick. I'm leading up to telling about what this has to do with the children. Children have not developed their higher will and higher intellect as much, so they will go after the richer food 9 times out
mm.
of 10. And it takes them getting a bellyache, and it takes them seeing the effects of that enough times before they make the pattern recognition and they start to think from their higher will, which happens naturally. So we make a compromise and we give them more healthy rich options rather than just going straight into you know whatever it is, cotton candy and burgers or something like that, or vegan burgers and stuff like that, which it's okay to have,
Mm.
a little indulgence now and then. It's okay. We take them out to eat sometimes. We have some rich food for birthdays and this and that. Um, I always tell people health is what you do every day. But yeah, you just got to help to kind of guide the children and give them the best options, so they feel satiated, so they're getting the right nutrition, and everybody's happy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of parents will be watching this, and you have five. So I'm sure you have like an experience now, I would say, in how to like what to give them, how to give them, and all that. You said something which was very interesting. You said that health is something that we do every day. Do you want to expand a little on that, Josh?
Absolutely, man. So um, there's that Zen parable. It's something like moderation, even in moderation. So it's the
Yeah.
idea of that, like, abstaining from everything is not necessarily the most balanced decision. Now, some people are ascetic. That's something that they do. They abstain. They keep their consciousness totally on point because, let's face it, different foods affect different organ systems. Different organ systems affect different emotions and states of mind. And so if you do something that's hard on the liver, you're going to be dealing with the discharge of frustration and anger, which is part of the balancing process. So, yes, there are ascetics who eat a very ascetic diet, and that's a lifestyle choice. However, for those who live in more of like the karma of life or the dharma or whatever you want to call it, like living daily life, have families, have careers, um, aiming for balance, I find is very important, because if we get too if we get too stringent, if we get too strict, then that can create like I talk about yin and yang a lot. That can create a yangness that when there's a weakness or whenever there's an imbalance or a stress, it can create a rebound. And so
Mm,
this is where you see some people who go too intense, real hard on a raw food diet or something like that, where they're just doing tons of fasting and stuff. And then you look back on the YouTube and now they're carnivore or something like that, right? They've just like gone the other way. Or you have people who are fasting and binging and fasting and binging. This is, that in feng shui philosophy, yin always begets yang, yang always begets yin. The bigger the yin, the bigger the yang, the bigger the yang, the bigger the yin. So if we recognize that there's a push and pull, expansion, contraction happening here, then we can kind of try and balance things. So what I tell people is that health is what you do every day. This means that we want to have a foundation in health affirming, um, higher intellect or higher will type decisions where we have a healthy, balanced diet where we're focusing on non processed, low to moderate fat, plant foods, keeping the cooking in balance, focusing on raw fruits and veggies, getting all that delicious electrical prana into our bodies. We want to be waking up at a similar time each morning, hopefully with the sun. I work up at 4 a.m. every day, and it's part of how I'm able to do all the things that I do. And keeping with, making some challenging life affirming decisions like doing calisthenics a couple times or 3 times a week like I do. These are the things we do each day that create the foundation for health. And within that gives us the freedom to go a little richer, to indulge now and then. And it also gives us the context to know what the indulgent actually does. Like, yes, it's delicious. It gives us a big dopamine. Tomorrow, we're probably going to have a little hangover. We're probably not going to metabolize the carbs quite as well if we eat a bunch of oil and rich food and stuff. And that, in my opinion, is freedom. That birthday cake is not going to take days off your life. It's not going to do that. It will if you do it every day. It will if you continue to do that each day. Absolutely. However, if we have a strong foundation of life, we have a strong foundation in higher will, life affirming behaviors, then that gives us the freedom to indulge on the birthdays and the solstices and the equinoxes or whatever it is that your tradition is to have a little bit of a feast. And this is another commonality with the blue zones is the times that they would have animal products or the times that they would have much richer foods were the feast days, designated by the religion or designated by the astrological events. And this, you can say, these people really nourished and relished those times and those occasions. And so they got nourishment that was beyond just what they put in their mouths, right? It was the time together, it was the meal spent together, it was the enjoyment, the gratitude, the
mm.
reverence, etc. So there's so much more to our nutrition, our well-being than just like what we put in our mouths, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man, for sure. And like also having some level of mental ease. Something that I see in me, I'm mostly 80 to 90% raw as well, mostly fruit, high in fruit. And how I see is that Fridays is usually when we come together. I live with my family, and Friday is a day where we cherish. And in the afternoon, we come together and have like a cooked meal together. It's all vegan. There's no question about it. And so I can observe and be conscious, and I'm aware of myself as to how as soon as I have this cooked vegan meal, I feel the urge to having it again the next day. The urge is the highest the next day to have it.
Yeah.
However, having that mental ease and a little distance from myself and my body allows me to, put that urge down very easily.
Mm-hmm.
Else, if you were to not have that mental ease and like the stillness, that is something that I approach things from. It's going to be very difficult, it's going to be very difficult to be fully aware and fully conscious as to what your thoughts are in that given moment, and to be able to change those thoughts at will. So yeah, man, all of these factors, the foundations, make it a lot easier for you to see health in a very holistic way. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah. Cool. Let's talk about fitness. You also brought calisthenics in between, so now I'm really curious to know because one, you have a very fabulous physique, man. So great job. You should be proud of yourself on that.
Thank you,
Um,
sir.
and two, take us through. Like you are currently doing bamboo building in Bali, you said, right? Even now.
Yeah, indeed, yeah.
Yeah, so you have that. I'm sure that is more like of a straining job than sitting on a computer and doing things. So definitely that plays a role as well. I'm sure. I'm probably guessing. And then you also do 3 days in a week of calisthenics. You said so. How is it that you balance? What is it that you advise people on a plant-based diet and the protein and all of these things, if you can?
Yeah, sure, man. Of course. And help to remind me about each thing, like about the protein. If I get off track, I tend to get tangents, like go on tangents. But
Worries.
um, what I do, so I've been a builder for the last decade, and all the jobs and all the work that I've done have been on my feet. I won't say that I'm like doing lots of like crazy lifting or anything. It's not necessarily building like tons of muscle. However, I'm definitely burning a lot of calories every day, moving from here to there,
Hmm.
and walking materials back and forth, climbing up and down ladders. So that's an interesting aspect for sure. And so that not everybody has that. I even consider it convenience, like it's nice because I don't have to think about like going on a run or going on walks and stuff. I probably walk 10 miles in a day sometime or however many kilometers. So I'm definitely moving a lot. Um, as far as the calisthenics that I do less than 2 hours of calisthenics per week. And so that's 30 to 40 minutes per session. And this is why I call it low volume, because comparatively to other exercise routines, 2 hours a week is very low and high intensity. So what that means is that whenever I go and do these calisthenics workouts, I'm pushing it. I'm pushing it hard. I'm trying to get the most out of it as I can in that short amount of time. And specifically, what high intensity means is for each of the exercise that I do, which I only do three different types of exercise, technically four if you add in, I do some core exercise sometimes. But I do three main exercises, and these are push ups, pull ups, and squats. And I do very different variations of the push ups, pull ups, and squats just to get to make sure I'm getting the upper chest, the middle chest, the lower chest, etc., to get a really well rounded workout. Honestly, you can do so much with push ups, pull ups, and standard squats. You can go so far with just those three. So, whenever you do each of the exercises, you are pushing to do as many repetitions as you can until you can no longer go through the full range of motion to finish that last repetition. That's the high intensity aspect. So, the reps that you're doing leading up to that failure rep, maybe it's the last five or maybe it's the last 10 reps, where I call those grinding reps, where you're exerting yourself to go through the full range of motion. That's where the majority of the muscle stimulation, the slight breakdown of the fibers occurs. And then with proper nutrition, which a whole food plant-based diet with the ratios that I've mentioned before, fat around 20%, um, you have adequate nutrition to rebuild better, stronger, and bigger than before. So that's basically what I do. Is I do 30 to 40 minute sessions per week, push-ups, pull-ups, squats. I do 3 rounds through. I do push-ups, pull-ups, squats, and then another variation of push-ups, pull-ups, squats, and then another variation of push-ups, pull-ups, squats. And by that time, anybody who's done the workouts with me, you'll know it's like, okay, yes, I am thoroughly stimulated, ready to do something else now, right? It's like, and and um, and then you take a rest day in between, 1 to 2 days of rest. You eat a whole food plant based diet, and I can only promote what has created me as the poster child. Um, this is enough protein. This is adequate protein to build uh, the type of physique that I promote, which I call it a ninja physique. And this is definitely the type of physique that would have been most common for like a warrior of old. The type of physique that we see today, perpetuated by Hollywood and social media, is more of a false projection of masculinity, where in this time of excess, where people are able to basically do bodybuilding as a living, or are able to do non really physically taxing work, like on the computer and office jobs and stuff. They're able to go put 5 days in a week at the gym, eat lots of extra protein, and in the extreme take anabolic steroids, and then build these excessively big muscles that are beyond any type of normal functionality. And so the only functionality therein is really beyond a certain point, which I'd say functional fitness is the ability to move the body and to move materials and to be strong and mobile and agile. Like, that's functional physiology. Anything above that, if you're not an athlete and you're not competing above other people, is technically vanity. And I'm not saying I'm not vain to some extent. I like the way that I look, and I like that's a major perk of doing this exercise is you get to have this nice ninja physique. That's definitely it's natural to have some vanity. This is part of what makes us want to look attractive for the opposite sex. It's like built in. It's built into the human program. Um, but on the protein side of things, I think that um, for one, we know that the human really doesn't require anything more than 6 to 10% protein, as long as they're getting that from a variety of plant sources. You know, it doesn't even need to be a big variety, like peas, rice, and hemp, and boom, you've got all the proteins and all the ratios. And if you're getting enough calories from your diet, then you're getting enough protein. And so we know that babies require the breast milk for babies is 6% protein. And we know that they're growing faster than anybody. They're getting adequate protein. And I can say from experience, whenever this is a good note. I've not just been in a 15-year steady calisthenics routine. I've been in and out with different stresses, with moving to different houses. I've been a year on at a time, a couple years on at a time, a year, 2 years off at a time. And what happens is that I always come down to the same weight when I'm out of the routine. It's around 150 pounds. But when I'm
Mm,
in the routine with the same nutrition, the same diet, I come up 15 pounds. We're talking less than 2 hours per week. The same thing I just described to you. I'll push ups, pull ups, squats, same nutrition, same protein. I build 15 pounds of muscle. If I want to build more muscle, maybe I eat a little bit more calories and do 3 hours a week. I don't know. It's not really a goal of mine, you see. Uh, Now, if I had some more time, maybe I don't have quite as much strenuous building work that I'm doing. I get a little more time. I actually enjoy working out. I enjoy getting stronger. I enjoy doing calisthenics. Maybe that then I do an experiment where I eat a little bit more quinoa in the diet, etc. And maybe that would build some more. The thing about bodybuilders is that they're having to do lots of exercise. They're having to take in lots of extra protein, and even the protein thing is sort of controversial. Basically, there are some studies that show that with the normal dietary recommendation of protein versus an increase in the protein, I'm not giving the exact values here because I don't remember. There was only about an eight over a year. There was only about an 8% increase with the higher protein diets. So if you think about, like, say you put on 10 pounds of muscle over a year, um, that's like an eighth of a pound, or 8/10 of a pound extra protein,
mm,
extra muscle on a higher protein diet. So it's really kind of trivial. There may be something more to it. Every bodybuilder I've ever seen, even in the plant-based world, all swear by more protein, right? Like, they're all saying protein powders and this and that. I don't really feel like eating protein powders. I don't really feel like eating fitness supplements. I don't do any fitness supplements. Um, And it comes down also to just like sustainability, holistic health, et cetera, et cetera. So, if you think if you want to build extra muscle, eh, then you're going to have to feed that muscle extra calories, and you're also going to have to continue to do exercise to maintain that size. So right now I'm only doing 2 hours a week. I feel great. I feel strong. I like the way I look. And this is what I in the where I want to put the majority of my energy is connection with my family, to my altruistic works, however I can help the world, however I can help the community, and towards my passions like music and time in nature. So that's where I put my that's where my values lie.
Yeah. Yeah, well said, man. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely, man. And with the protein thing, the way I see it is that there is no denying that there is no protein, that there is protein in meat, like, or animal products. There is 100. There is definitely protein in animal products, and there's also protein in plant-based alternatives as well. But here's how I see it, Josh, is that um, in nature, everything, if you were to just walk in nature, you're currently surrounded by a lot of nature, you're a nature's guy, you would see that everything around you is just pouring with intelligence. There's intelligence, intelligence, intelligence everywhere, right? Like the way things are designed, shaped, colors, sizes, everything is fantastic. And the same goes with nutrition as well. Everything has its own benefits in nature, everything has its own vitamins, nutrients, all of that, right? And so the animal products are best absorbed by organisms that are designed to absorb it the very best, which is a lion. To a lion, man, animal products, when ingested, perform the very best inside of the lion's anatomy, right? Instead of in the lion's biology. Now, if one were to just stay still and pay keen attention to how their body performs when they ingest animal products as compared to how it performs when they ingest plant-based products, they will see a huge difference, a very smooth functioning body, right? And a smooth functioning body says that whatever you just put inside of your body is very efficient and is being absorbed the very best. That's the reason why it's so smooth in digestion and excretion, accumulation, whatnot. So how I see it is that, man, have things, ingest things that are going to perform the very best to this anatomy, to this biology. Because even a mango is packed with intelligence, vitamins, nutrients. But give that same mango to a lion, it's pretty much useless. So it's the same way, the other way around as well. Is that when you take these animal products, sure, they are packed with vitamins and nutrients, protein, fat, whatever, but they're not going to do any good to this piece of technology, because this piece of technology is designed in such a way that it can absorb the very best fruits. We are even science backs it up. If people were to go take a look as to what our anatomy really is, I'm not saying go change to fruit diet, but I'm saying just be aware of what your anatomy is. And if you're and for people who are listening to this, for sure they're human beings, and human beings anatomy, man, is very similar to a frugivore, or is a frugivore sort of an anatomy.
100%.
So just have things that are going to perform the very best inside of your body. Do the workouts. Not less is more when it comes to that. I'm seeing this more and more and more, and this is what I adopt as well. 3 days a week, man, nothing more than that. Like, I don't want to invest any more time into my calisthenics. I come from a calisthenics background as well,
Awesome.
and so I can definitely see less is more, and giving your body what it can perform the very best on is the perfect equation there is.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, and
Yeah.
like you're saying about the autonomy, or the physiology, the anatomy. Like for the one of the reasons why, for example, a lion is so optimized and dogs can do flesh and things like that is because these this flesh is very high in saturated fat, and their digestive transit time makes it to where they don't absorb too much cholesterol, and so then they like are able to basically utilize the nutrients, and then they pass them. They don't really live super long lives or anything like that, but they can do it. If a human puts the same stuff in, yes, there's bioavailable protein, like you're saying, there's bioavailable nutrients and stuff, but there's also super bioavailable stuff such as saturated fat and on nitrous metabolic waste products that cause detriment to the system. The saturated fat weakens the endothelial lining uh, of the cardiovascular system, leading up to heart attacks and things. The saturated fat clogs the receptor cells of the receptor sites of our cells, so that insulin cannot open the door to get glucose in. The nitrous metabolic waste products act as stimulants that stimulate our adrenal glands to produce adrenaline, which is one of the reasons why people tend to say, "Oh, I feel all this energy on a meat diet." It's actually not really due to the nutrition; it's actually due to adrenal stimulation. And like you were saying, if you put diesel in a gasoline car, it's going to break down. It's going to gunk up. It's not going to last. So I
Yeah,
think that that's what it comes down to with humans. Yes, you can survive on animal foods for a time, but I think, and I also tell people, it's like, the research is pretty revealing. However, the next two generations will be the most revealing. It's like there, because people are really doubling down on their dietary choices at this point. Some people just, it's going to become evident over a lifespan what the effects are, and of course, I'm in the plant based side. I think that we're going to see more and more longevity, more and more positive health outcomes become evident on the plant based side of things, especially as our children, grow into adulthood and things. And
yeah.
so it's an interesting process, an honor to be on the journey, right?
Yeah, it is. It is, and yeah, it's exciting as well. And if at all people have not woken up or people have not made the transition, just know that there's a reason why one of the biggest migrations on the planet is people from eating meat to vegan or vegetarian and then vegan. Right? There's a reason why this is happening, and as more and more people realize this, and the newer generations, the generations coming up. Might come from a more conscious point of view and see it this way. We will see how it goes, but it is
Yeah,
definitely exciting. Cool, man. That was awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that. I want to keep it short
yeah.
and digestible for people, man. So I think it's going good so far. This is our first time, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up as of now. Josh, do you want to go ahead and share where people can find you, brother?
Sure. Do you want me to tell, or do you want to just post the links in the description?
I'll do that as well. But I
Okay.
think if you were to just, yeah, say
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. So I'm on Instagram, the Plant Ninja with underscores in between, and then I'm also on Facebook. I have a Facebook. I'm Josh Geiger on Facebook, and I also have a free private group. It's called Plant Ninja. If you look up Plant Ninja, I can't remember. I think it's like Whole Food Plant Based Diet and Fitness or something like that. Forgive me, I forgot the name of the group. And then I've got a membership and also a private membership. It's plantninja.life, and you can come check it out for free. And if you like it, you can stick around. And of course, I also offer one-on-one coaching for people who want to see like a major transformation, who want to have the guidance and accountability to really make a major transformation in 90 days. That's the best decision, the best choice for that is going to be the 90-day one-on-one transformational coaching. And you can find me everything at plantninja.life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. And I believe that you're doing a great job with bringing this transformations to people for sure. And you're a busy guy, man. Like the bamboo building, and then the amazing mentorships and the social media thing that you have right now with 5 kids. It's incredible.
It's ambitious, man. It's ambitious. We've got it's a big upfront investment, I would say, like with the children and with just like really trailblazing a career. I'm deeply altruistic. I'm deeply passionate about humanity going through a big transformational time right now, and the kind of the fuel that what fuels me is this deep sense of purpose, this gratitude for a vision of what's possible. That I feels like
Mhm.
bestowed to me, a vision of what's possible, and I know that I have the energy and I have the strength to invest as much of myself into this transformation as possible, into a time that I may never see, but that my children, my grandchildren will see. So that's what really drives me, man. Is this will, this higher will, and this sense of purpose.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, cool, awesome, fantastic. And last thing before we wrap this up is how's the fruit scene where you are? I'm sure it's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet, man. Like we have seasons, so things get really good and then things get pretty good, so it never goes to like
Mhm.
to we always have bananas, always have dragon fruits, always have papayas, and then there's some really sweet seasons where we get the durian, white mango, mangosteen. Like mango season was rocking this year. We're still in mango season right now, and so every single day,
Oh, sweet.
usually twice a day, I'm doing, for breakfast I'm doing 2 or 3 mangoes with a dragon fruit sprinkled with a teaspoon of spirulina and some bee pollen. I like to do a little bit of bee products. I don't really do honey, but I like bee pollen, and that with a little bit of shilajit in my drink, and that's like got me going. And I build all day till lunch, and then I do another round of that dragon fruit, couple mangoes, a little spirulina and bee pollen, and that rocks me out until dinner time. And then boom, we hit up the salads. It's a little bit of starchy sweet potatoes, something like that. Keeping that fat around 20%, a little bit of walnuts, avocado, that sort of thing. And man, it's serving me well. I feel very grateful.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's awesome, man. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing everything that you did, brother. I greatly feel humbled to get to know your story and to have you here. And for all the people, I'm so happy and excited for all the gold nuggets that they got. Definitely check out Josh, guys. Go ahead and yeah, check him out. I'm sure if there's something that you want transformation with in your life, I'm sure Josh is going to be a great person to look after. And yeah, thank you so much, Josh.
Yeah, absolute
Appreciate it.
honor, man. Thanks so much for having me on. And as I always say, wishing y'all the best of health.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Have a good one, brother. Thank you.
You as well.